This is the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where we have conversations with everyday martial artists about their histories and how martial arts influence their daily lives. You are listening to the abbreviated version of this podcast, which is the first 20 minutes or so of the show. Please consider supporting the show by subscribing on our Patreon page, www.patreon.com/malmag, and for about the price of one coffee shop coffee per month, you can get access to 4 new podcasts each month, 1 week before their YouTube release dates. You also have access to all of our existing shows, which at this point is about 100 hours of shows for you to enjoy. Individual shows can be purchased at our Gumroad page. That is malmag.gumroad.com. This week I get on Zoom and I connect to Ireland and I speak with martial artist Mick Shore, who is my older brother in the Larry Hartzell organization, and we talk about how he got involved in martial arts, how he came across the idea of writing his personal biographical book, Sticks and Stones, and what it was like to train with Larry Hartzell. Sit back and enjoy. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and this week I am on Zoom and I'm talking to Ireland, actually, and I'm talking with an old friend, actually for the very first time. We've chatted a lot, and we're kind of brothers in the same family. This gentleman is my senior under Larry Hartzell, and always been a very interesting and wonderful person for me to talk to and chat with, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation we're about to have. And turns out he's a big movie fan like me too, it appears. And so this is Mick Shore. Welcome to the show.
Hello, welcome. I'm welcome on board to your show. Good to have me here, first time. So looking forward to what you have to question me on.
Absolutely. Well, it's not an interrogation. It'll be easy stuff. Knowing your wit and sense of humor, you're going to handle this quite well, and this should be an awesome show. So I guess we'll just start at the beginning. How did you get involved
like
in martial arts?
A lot of people, it was bullying when I was a kid. You're getting bullied at school. It was bullied at school, and the thing for me was half Irish. So in the UK, I had half Irish. My mother was half Irish and half Anglo-Indian. She had going blood in her and stuff. So I got a lot of bullying when I was a kid, and I only had one friend outside of school who wanted to be my friend, and I found out it was because he had started boxing, and he wanted a boxing partner. So I didn't. So that wasn't too good friendship. You know what I mean? But at school, yeah, there was a bit of racial stuff as well, because if you was Irish background in the UK in those days, you got a lot of anti-Irish stuff, and my father being Irish and stuff, so it was a case of taking to judo. My dad used to love watching wrestling on TV, funny enough. He used to love watching wrestling and stuff. And my dad was a fighter, he could fight. But he decided, what do I take him to? There's no wrestling in the area. Or there was, but more for adults. So he said, right, I take him to judo. So at 7 years old, I got taken to judo. And I did judo. And that was what got started me off. So like a lot of other people, it was the bullying thing. Defend yourself. And, and before you know it, I was back at school throwing people, and I threw the guy who was boxing me as well outside the school. So that was it. So Wow. It stopped the bullying.
Wow. And that was kind of some interesting times too. So what part of England was this?
I started judo in 1975. Yeah, I was born in 68, so I was 7 years old. I started judo, 75. And I continued the judo for quite a few years until... it was very effective, stopped me getting bullied completely. I got into high school and someone convinced me to stop the judo and take up Kung Fu instead. And since I thought, it worked for Jackie Chan in Snake and the Eagle's Shadow and Drunken Master, it must work a lot better than judo. So I started doing all the snake fist and what have you. And it didn't work so well in defending yourself, I found out,
No, but it keep you in shape. I mean, that is some physical stuff.
Yeah, the judo stuff was better, but the traditional Kung Fu stuff didn't do me in good stead. But luckily, they did have in the 80s, then it went to the 80s, there were kickboxing involved with it when they used to spar semi-contact. And the only problem was the judo was full, sparring, but the semi-contact taught me to punch and pull the punch or kick and, and I remember once or twice in the upper school, again, racial stuff again, and some people trying stuff. And I remember doing an amazing kick. Somebody grabbed my leg and I jumped up and I kicked them in the head, but I actually pulled it. Could have been in movies. Ooh. It was that good. I pulled it, landed on the floor, and then I got guy punched hell out of me. So I was that used to pulling the punch, pulling the kick, everything I did was, pat and pull it back. Yeah. But surprisingly, years later, before I actually got wise on the Kung Fu, I actually got disqualified from a few contests I did, a few kickboxing contests, and that was for excessive contact. So, but when it come to actually defending myself, I was just into that thing of pulling the punches. So the Kung Fu days lasted towards my teens, and then I moved down to London for a good few years, working down there, and came back, and it was about 1991. I was searching for, I just didn't want to go back to what I was doing. I was searching for martial arts, and I found a guy who did Filipino martial arts and JKD concepts, and I got in contact with him. He got me doing that. It was pretty hardcore. There was a lot of Western boxing to test your character. As they said, before he wanted to teach you, he wanted to see if you could box. And I went in and they said, you sparred before? Oh, yeah, of course. I done all this semi-contact sparring. I just got full contact boxing, knocked the crap bloody mouth and everyone. And in a rough Yorkshire club in the north of the UK. And they said, afterwards, everybody was doing a lot of what we call squaddies, which would be soldiers that go there, big guys. And afterwards, all sat around, and there were no protein drinks in those days. Everybody would sit around, go to the pub afterwards, and they'd have a beer. So they'd all having a beer.
Well, Guinness protein, right? Yeah. Isn't Guinness pretty loaded?
And I remember sitting down, having a beer, and, we call it a shandy over here. They mix lemonade with beer. And I had one of these because I was driving back, so I had a shandy and I was drinking it. And the guys were, oh, yeah, it's good fun, isn't it, with these pillows on you? It doesn't really hurt. You'll be back next week, won't you? And I was nodding and drinking this and looking at the blood trickling into the beer, drinking it and thinking, okay. I was nodding, saying I'm coming back. But in my head, I was thinking, get me the hell out of here as quick as possible. Yeah, exactly. But I kept on going back. I had this thing, I had to go back, and I kept on going back. And he introduced me to a lot of other arts, introduced me to a lot of arts, apart from Filipino martial, other martial arts like Thai and what have you, and Silat and, Sabat and a few other bits along the way, what you find in JKD concepts.
Wow, very cool. Well, man, he gave me a couple of questions in there. First, I'm going to go backwards. This shandy thing. So, what kind of beer goes in with the lemonade? I've never had this, and I'm intrigued.
You can have a beer shandy or a lager shandy. So, you want a lager shandy, something like a German Pilsner, what you'd have over there, because mostly quite a lot of the American beers are German based anyway. I didn't realize I was reading history. There's a bit of anti-German thing back in World War II. Before that time, the World War was happening. Right. And what they did was they changed the names of certain beers. So it sounded American, but the German beers, just like hot dogs, it's a German thing, isn't it? So, but the thing was,
exactly.
Yeah, so you get a good lager, a good Pilsner, and you can either do half and half, but mainly we do like this much lager and then top it up with a lemonade.
Okay, so like 2/3, 1/3, 3/4 beer.
If you're driving over here, you think you're more, or just to hydrate yourself, 50-50. Yeah, so you could have like half a Stella with half a lemonade, or up to the top, and then if you had a beer, you'd have like just a normal beer. I suppose like a Molson or something, beer or something, and like top it up or something. But you don't drink them all the time. If you was in the north of the UK, there's something you drink when you're driving, or like maybe a younger man, or if you've been training, want to refresh you after training. If you drink it all the time, you'll get called a shandy drinker, and it's a derogatory word. It's like saying like you're soft, or you're just a shandy drinker. It just means you're soft. The people in the north used to call all those people in the south of the UK, they're all soft southern shandy drinkers, for example. So you get away with one or two in the UK, but then they'll say, hey, what are you drinking there? Why are you drinking that? get a proper beer. So your first one is shandy, second one proper beer.
Oh, I've always enjoyed how you folks in the UK throw insults out. You guys have like mastered it. It's interesting. You know, we're starting to get a little more clever with it here in America, but you know, I think you guys have.
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
a sarcasm. We call it taking the pee out of somebody. You know. Yeah, and they say, "Oh,
right,
you
right,
know, we're just
exactly, yeah,
taking the piss." You know, that's all we're doing. In Ireland, when people say having the crack, they're doing the same thing in Ireland, having the crack with you. They might whine. We all say you're winding a person up, which means, you know, you're trying to just get him going. But it's just play. There's nothing serious in it. You know, it's a strange sense
right,
of
right,
humor.
yeah.
You know, so
Oh, good. That's what I'm trying to get through to certain folks on certain platforms right now who are getting a little wound up about things. I'm like, look, man, these guys are British. It's just this, you know. Stop
yeah,
taking it
yeah,
so
they've got to
damn
relax.
seriously.
I think they should. I mean, I worked on building sites when I was younger, and you know, the stuff you get away with on building sites in the UK, you know, just joking. I think so many people today would just get so offended. You know, they were so angry and upset.
Yeah,
But it was just done as, and
right,
some of the jokes were just, you know, you'd say to a
right,
new
right.
guy, like I had it done on me, and say to me, "Oh, Mick, can you go to the office and ask for a long stand?" Right? So you'd go to someone and say, "Can I have a long stand?"
Uh,
And they'd stand you over there. And when you were thinking a long stand, no, somebody'd leave you stood
right,
there,
right.
and they said, "What are you doing?" I
And
said,
then
"I'm waiting for a long stand."
in
Oh, all
the
right, keep
corner,
stood there
like,
then.
cool, right? Go stand in the corner.
Or if you had a guy who was really strong, you know, "Oh, I'm strong doing weights and muscle." They say, "Oh, you're really strong. Lift this bag of whatever over your head. Could be a bag of plaster, cement." He'd lift it,
Yeah.
and some guy'd run behind it with a knife and cut it.
Oh, jeez.
You know, so you'd get that on building sites, but afterwards you'd laugh and joke about it. You know, it was nothing serious. You
Right.
know, so I do think a lot of martial arts tend to get very, very serious. You know, and as a rule, when you get
Yeah,
older, you
yeah.
get more relaxed because you're sort of like
I
whatever
would hope
winds you
so.
up when you're younger, you get to that age where you don't give a shit when you're older. You're not bothered about the, you know, you don't
Right.
want that stress. You don't want that stuff to be like, why stress
Exactly.
out over that? Why bother if somebody has a difference in opinion? You know, and as you've
Right.
seen yourself on forums, you've got people who can act very above themselves, very in, you know, control above themselves. People. Then you've got other people who love trying to, we'd say, winding somebody up, trying to get a reaction. You know, trying to provoke an emotional reaction. You know, it'd be like
Yeah,
Blade
yeah.
Runner. You know, the test where they're trying to get the eye to go, the
Yeah,
emotional
yeah, exactly.
response, and somebody says something.
Let me tell
Yeah,
you about my
and
mother. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
and for, well, obviously they react like Leon, don't they? They go insane,
Right.
you know. But instead of like ignoring it and thinking, "Hey, this guy is trying to get a rise out of me," he's just trying to, he's dangling a, you know, a hook and a thread. He's just dangling something for me to take a bite,
Right.
you know. And that's all they're trying to do is get, you know, there are people like that, you know, the trolls and whatnot.
Oh,
They're
of
just like,
course.
they've got a bit of a sad life and they just want to wind people up and get them angry, and they think it's funny, you know. They've got nothing else.
Right. Right. Well, and the difference is like, you know, like the more, I don't know, we would call it, I don't know, hazing's kind of a bad word, but let's say taking
Yeah,
the piss, like you'd said, you know, on the construction site, you know, it's all fun. You're going to do the joke, and then you're going to slap the guy in the back, and you're going to
yeah,
have a laugh about it, you know, and you're all cool. But yeah, you know, the different level, what you're talking about is this is someone who's just doing it for
yeah.
their own
Very sad.
entertainment, and
But
they're hoping they
hey,
injure
they're probably still,
something, you know,
you
they're
know, live at
hoping they,
home with their mother. They're single. you know,
oh,
you know that
I'm sure. Yeah,
type of person that you want. When you have to do those things for
yeah,
kids, you know, there's something missing.
right.
And then you know, as a
Yeah,
rule, if I'm online, the only time I try not to bite. You know what I call a bite. I try not to bite as much as possible. Keep the emotions out of
right.
it. Try and using logic and reason to debate. But if you do see ever so often someone doing it to hurt somebody and that person is hurt, then I will naturally
Right.
try and stand up for that person, you know, and tell someone that's, you
Sure.
know, that's over the edge. You've gone over the line there. You know, that's
Right.
that's
Right. Or if they're not defend themselves. There's that too. I don't like when there's something put on someone who's not
Oh,
around to defend themselves. That's kind of bad.
Be it Bruce Lee or Larry Hart. So, well, you know yourself what our instructor was like. And I remember Sifu Larry saying to me once, he said, and he told me once, and he said, I'd asked him about an incident, what happened with Eric Paulson and Guru Dan and Asanto, where they'd gone into a bar and, someone had said, notice Guru Dan's shirt and stuff. And he said some disparaging remarks to Dan. So instead of anything, Dan said, look, let's leave the bar. These guys have had too much of a beer. So they left the bar. Eric escorted Guru Dan out. And after this, Larry was missing. So Dan says, Guru Dan says, Eric, go back in and get Sifu Larry. Go back in and get him. And he goes back in to get him. And, Sifu Larry, there's two guys laid out on the floor, and Sifu Larry just finishing his pint. Finishes his drink. And he just looks, and he looked at me, told me the same. I asked him, he said, he looked at Eric, and he says, no one insults Sigung, Bruce Lee, or Guru Dan in Asanto. They're my friends. And when he said that to me, I sat to him, and he said, Mick, if you can stand there when people are insulting your friends, especially when they're not here to speak for themselves, what type of friend really are you? And I agreed wholeheartedly. And, that was a typical example.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, I mean, I got lucky when I first went to the academy. I got into Larry's group pretty quick, because what happened there was really funny. I didn't know he taught there. And so I had gone, it's only, 3 miles down the street from me. So it's not far. And I had gone in and watched a class, and then they allowed me to take a free class after that, which was Guru's Thursday morning class. So Larry generally wasn't there on Thursday morning unless he was teaching a private or something, but he wasn't normally scheduled to be there. So I did not see him that day I was there, so I had no idea. So I was going to sign up the following Tuesday morning, clearing up my schedule. At the time I was working more nights editing TV, and so kind of clearing up my daytime schedule to go. And so Dory, who's the manager there, she told me, she said, there's going to be a woman named Deborah to help you here on Tuesday. I said, okay, great. So I walked in, and sure enough, the lady's name was Deborah. Great. I sign up, and she goes, okay, well, you can wait on the mats. The class will start in 15 minutes. I'm like, okay. So I went and started stretching out, and I saw there was somebody sitting back by Guru Dan's office, but I didn't really look at him. I'm not into just going in hard staring at somebody. So class time got up. This guy got up from the chair, walked on the mat, and I recognized him. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize he was an actual teacher here. That is cool. So first class, and he caught on to me pretty quick. I mean, I had been in JKD college for 10 years at that point, and had done karate and kickboxing for 10 years before that. So he's like, you're not new to this stuff. You're new to here. I said, yeah. And within, I would say, a month, he was inviting me and Chris Harley into his semi-private group. So we jumped into that, and that's how we kind of got with him and got very close to him. And so, you get close to him if you're training with him. That's how it works, right? And then with Guru Dan, obviously there's an affection, but I think it was the first Legends camp I ever went to, which was, I think, 2005. And he had mentioned, he was just talking about Bruce Lee, and then he was kind of talking chronologically. And he got to the point in the chronology where he passed away, and you could see it just stopped him and made him really upset. And I mean, everything just stopped and got silent. And we're like, wow, okay. And I had never seen him react like that. And I told myself at that day, I said, look, the next time someone insults Guru Dan's relationship to Bruce Lee, I'm going to get pissed, because it takes me to that point every time that I see him upset about his friend dying. And that really just, it pisses me off. And that's why I react. I do,
Well, you got to say something. I mean, I remember there was a story, and it was one of, I know who the guy was, but I'm not going to mention his name. But he was a Larry Hartzell instructor. Very good guy. I've got a lot of respect for him. He knows me well. And it's not Chris, by the way. But anyway, he was on a seminar, and years ago, he was on a seminar, and someone at the time, another instructor, a JKD instructor, was speaking a bit unsound of Sifu Larry, some things he was saying. And this guy turned around, he was there by himself. All he had was this T-shirt on. He stood out the crowd, and he turned around, and this guy's there with all his students, all his reps, People come to see him, and he says, "Excuse me, sir, I'd like to, say a word." And he says, "Excuse me, what?" He says, I'd like to ask you to refrain from speaking about my Sifu that way. Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to step outside." And the guy just went, boom, zip. And the other guys, not one of these guys, younger reps, came forward to could say, "Oh, we'll go out with you. We'll go outside." And they stopped speaking bad about Sifu Larry. He stood up amongst a crowd of about 50 people by himself and said, "If you keep speaking about him like that, come outside or send one of your best guys." They all shut up. And you know what? And if you ever meet the guy, you'll know why. Shut up as well. He's no idiot. He can do the business. He can, and he will not hear nothing speak about Sifu Larry. And I got a lot of respect for him that day. It takes a lot to stand up and be counted when the odds are all against you, and to stand up and say something.
Yeah.
When everybody else could sit there and say nothing, and think, "Oh, I better not say nothing," and this guy stands up and does say something. So I think that's a lot of things, is to be stand up and be counted.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I'm hoping twofold on the other guy's behalf. I hope that, the who you're talking about was intimidating to him, but I hope he also just kind of came to realize, that was just actually a dumb thing to do. Like, I don't understand this need of people to insult someone else's instructor. Like, why would you do that? Like, you're literally, I mean, the term Sifu, right, in the Cantonese, it's a family term as well. So it means like father. Yeah. So you're insulting a person's father. So if you went and insulted a person's father, you don't think they're going to get
I think
mad at you?
Some people do it like in a crazy, misplaced sense of loyalty, if that makes sense. They've got an instructor and they think, right, well, our guys, what he teaches is the best. We're better than everything else. And for some reason, they cling to that without even seeing what your teacher does. And then there's others I think actually would say something because they feel threatened. I've seen people speak to me and about Sifu Larry, and the way they've taught, I've shut them up. But it's the way they were speaking was they didn't say stuff outright. It was they were going around the border, around the edges, just subtle things that,
Right.
And I thought, well, you're only saying this because it's as simple as this: you're not a fighter, and you're not the person Sifu Larry was at all. You could not do what he was. You're not even a tenth of the man he was. So all you can do now, he's gone, is utter little things. You see, that's the type of person you were. You see, and that's what I anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird, I understand, okay, being proud of who you're learning from and thinking what you're doing is great. And even the best, I don't have a problem with people thinking that, that's fine. But it's when you directly go and insult, or even like you said, around the corner, like there's an intent to insult someone else. Like, you don't get to be the best by saying everyone else sucks. That's kind of not how that works. You get to be the best. You're associated with something, so you're proud of it. That's great. That's fine. You get to be the best by, I don't know, best is a fleeting thing. Like, if we think of best whatever, most of the time when we talk about best, it's just opinion based. What's the best flavor of ice cream? Well, that's going to be your taste versus my taste. It doesn't mean it's best, right? The best in football. Well, they won one game at this point, which was called a championship game. So they were the best at that one particular moment, but now that moment's gone. So they're not necessarily the best now. Someone else could beat them. So these are just fleeting moments in time, and they're probably arbitrary at best anyway. So I understand why we do it, but I don't understand why we do it at the expense of other things. That screams lack of confidence, I guess, right?
Most definitely lack of confidence, lack of belief in themselves. So they've got to try and take someone else down.
Right. Exactly. And, that's one thing I can say that I really liked about Sifu Larry. And then everyone that is what we could call a Sifu Larry guy, yourself, Chris, Rob Kelly, a lot of people that I know, that we're all sort of the same in that manner. Like, we're kind of more doer than talker. I mean, we like to talk, but not in that way. but it's just they're you guys are all very like practical guys when it comes to martial art training. Like it doesn't not necessarily saying okay everything we do is real and it's about hardcore fighting. It's like it's about just good training. Having that training be a benefit to us in some way, shape, or form that doesn't take away from someone else.
No, I agree.
And that's one thing I've really admired about this group, and you guys in particular, and you especially. Yes,
yeah, 100%. I agree.
I find you that
way. Say, like, I used to see like Sifu Larry's guys. I used to see them like when they come in, and well, there were a couple of instances what used to be quite funny. Like if you were, example, I remember I was sparring once. There were me and Frank Bazinski. We were sparring and just grappling. And some other guys were watching. They were like, "Oh, super!"
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/malmag and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Mick Shore. Coming up next week, I connect to Illinois and I talked with Band of Brothers Sam Spence. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabiker Bong. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available with new t-shirt designs and more products coming soon. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Jack Al Relic. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.